If you turn your Bible to Revelation chapter 1, Revelation chapter 1, and it says this from verse 10. On the Lord's day I was in the Spirit, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet, which said, "Write down a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea." I turned round to see the voice that was speaking to me, and when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And among the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet, and with a golden sash around his chest. His head and his hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing water. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth came a sharp double-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining in all its brilliance. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. And he placed his right hand on me and said, "Do not be afraid. I'm the first and the last. I'm the living one. I was dead, and behold, I'm alive forever. And I hold the keys of death and Hades. Write therefore what you have seen, and what is now, and what will take place later. The mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand, and of the 7 golden lampstands is this: the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches." I was at a friend's house who was from a very different background to mine once, and as we were wandering around his house, I was just desperate to make some sort of polite conversation. And under the frame was an old piece of paper with type written on it, and there was a couple of signatures. German High Command, I think, was one of the words. I can't remember the details, and just out of politeness, I didn't care really. I was just waiting for dinner. I said, "So what's this then? This seems an odd thing to put up." And he said, "Oh, it's the surrender document, or one of them, from the First World War." Suddenly I paused and realized that document that I just brushed past lots of times when I went to his house was in fact worth a fortune. I wonder if we saw the world as God himself sees it, from heaven. What really is important? I wonder how many things that we walk past, brush past on earth, that we think are trivial, God sees of incredible importance. I wonder how many things we think are incredibly important and really matter, God sees as very trivial. In fact, there's one book in the Bible written to explain to us from heaven's side what doesn't matter. It's called Ecclesiastes. But as we come to the book of Revelation, we see something of extraordinary importance and relevance. A document sent to 7 churches, which Jesus thinks are incredibly important. And listen to how it starts. "I turned around," says John, as I'm supposed to be writing down. "I turn around, and what do I see? I see 7 golden lampstands. And what do I see standing among the 7 golden lampstands? I see someone who fills the place." A home is only really a home when there's a wife or a mother there. Suddenly, the home comes to life, doesn't it? My children, when they come in, they say hello, and if I shout hello, they say it again. They want their mother to be there, their mum. She's what makes it home for them. She fills it, so the carpets and the pictures and the furniture suddenly comes alive, the table, everything comes to life because she's there. Well, Jesus has set out these candle lampstands, and they don't seem like much, but Jesus clearly thinks they are. And then he appears in the middle of them. And what does he look like? Well, what extraordinary thing he looks like, doesn't he? He's got a sash down to his feet, over his chest. His hair is white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes are burning like fire. His feet, they're not moving anywhere. He's not going anywhere. He's not on his way out. That's exactly where he belongs. And his voice, when he speaks, is like rushing waters. This is not the Jesus whose glory was hidden while he walked on earth, whose charisma made him not stand out in a crowd. Even Judas, interestingly, isn't it, had to pick him out, even though he'd been teaching and preaching, because he had no natural charisma, it says, doesn't it, in Isaiah 53. He was mad. No man could even look at him. That's not the Jesus of the cross whose glory was hidden. This is the Jesus whose glory is revealed. The same Jesus, but seen as he really is in heaven. And every eye that sees him now doesn't mock or spit on him or laugh or blaspheme him. They are astonished and silenced in his presence, as his voice is like rushing waters. And in his hand he holds the 7 stars. Out of his mouth comes a sharp, double-edged sword. And his face is like the sun. You cannot take your eyes off him. Oh, that people on earth would see that. They'll think of Jesus, don't they, and hardly bother. Walk past the church, see a cross maybe, see a Bible, hear his name blasphemed. It means nothing. And yet there's a day coming where everyone will not be able to take their eyes off him. That's heaven's perspective, showing itself to how it should be on earth. People watch the TV, the internet, anything, but they never look to Jesus and are saved. And as we look at him, John behaves in a very funny way, doesn't he? He's supposed to be writing, but he's dropped his pen and he's fallen on his face. And then a hand comes on and says, do not be afraid. Don't be afraid. I don't want you just to do nothing. I want you to see. I'm the first, I'm the last, I'm the living one. I've always been. I'm in control. I was dead. Behold, I'm alive forever. I hold the keys to death and the grave. I'm in charge. It's okay. Now write what you've seen. The mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand and of the 7 golden lampstands is this. The 7 stars are the angels of what? After you've seen this vision of what? What are these stars? What are these lampstands that he set out to show off? 7 churches. 7 churches. 7 churches which are far from perfect. 7 churches that people walk past and think are not significant at all. People think the power rests in Washington, Moscow, rests in the great cities of this world. And yet there's no mention really of any of those cities except possibly Rome, but no real mention of them. Where he walks, where he stands, is in 7 churches. Because that's what he thinks really matters. People often say, I'd like to walk where Jesus walks. Well, every time you go to church, you have a chance. Isn't that a great thought? Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could walk where Jesus walks? Maybe I could go off on a plane, walk where he walked in Galilee. Well, that's okay, but I'll tell you where he'll be walking this Sunday. I'll tell you where he'll be poking around, if I could put it that way. I'll tell you where he'll be sitting and where he'll be eating. He'll be sitting and eating in churches across this world. Churches in countries where there's little money. The weak places, the poor places. Churches across the world. He walks around them. He cares for them. And he has a word for them. That's the next most extraordinary thing, isn't it? He has something to say. I wonder whether we see our church like this. I wonder if you were in the church at Ephesus or Pergamum or Thyatira, you'd be sitting there and thinking, Jesus has something to say to me and our church. I just thought it needed me to make the coffee or make up the numbers or join the singing or enjoy the entertainment. I never realized that he was walking amongst us and talking to us. And he really cares. I never realized it matters to him how we behave. I'm always worrying about things that don't matter in church. The seats in our church are particularly uncomfortable. The singing isn't always what people want. The preacher doesn't preach like some preacher down the road or somebody that I've heard off the internet. I didn't realize that Jesus himself was here, walking, talking. When you look at these churches, you realize they're churches just like ours, churches that have got it wrong, badly wrong. But Jesus still walks. Somebody said to me, and I often hear this line, "You'll never find the perfect church." Well, I'm hoping to find it. When I go to heaven, I'm hoping to find the perfect church. I'll be very disappointed if it's not the perfect gathering. But while I'm on earth, I long to be with God's people that reflects that perfect church. And Christ walks and talks and demands that church reflects heaven on earth. But the greatest crisis that can face all of these churches is found in the last one. What is that makes church so special to Jesus? Is that Jesus wants to be there. He doesn't want churches to think they're brilliant. He doesn't want churches to think they're rich. He doesn't want churches to think they're special. He doesn't even want churches to analyze how good or bad they really are. What matters? Those I love, I rebuke. So come on. Wake up. Be earnest. Turn round. I am here. Outside, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come in and eat with him, and he with me. The greatest need we have in our churches is for Jesus to be present, eating and drinking with us. God hasn't created churches to be structures or organizations. He's created them to be living places where he sits amongst us and dominates us. He doesn't want us to take programs and decide whether we're a good church by how much we do or how much we don't do. The question is he there? From heaven's perspective, does anything we do matter in comparison to Christ being there? You see, church is a love affair, isn't it? This passage, I have no doubt, is a reflection of that great incident in Song of Solomon, which you see in chapter 3, where there she is, the church, and she's tired with her own activities and her own beauty. She's made her hands smooth, and there comes Christ, and he knocks at the door, doesn't he? And by the time she bothers to get up, she's not able to grab the handle because her hands are dripping with myrrh. She's only concerned about herself. And he's gone. And it's a disaster. I wonder whether that's how we see our church life. We're so obsessed with how we look, how we feel, how we think we are. So quick to criticize, to trash talk everybody else. And we've forgotten Christ isn't there. We don't pray for his presence anymore. And then, by the time we've worked it out, he's gone. And if you've come to that place, do you see it as a tragedy? What does she do? She runs out to find him. And whatever the cost, he must come and live amongst her. That's church. Have you grasped that? The key of our church life is that Jesus says he will never leave us or forsake us. Jesus loves church. But is he present with us? Oh, that he would live and walk and talk and eat and drink amongst us in our church services and when we gather together, so that we might reveal to this world that he is the only thing, the only one that really matters.